Hey everyone, welcome to Tech Tuesday. It's 3 o'clock and it's Tuesday. That does mean that it's Tech Tuesday, and today I'm going to be talking about a broadband internet report that the NTCA put out that has some interesting statistics. I'll be right back. Thanks for joining me. I'm Rick Husey here at Zcorum, Tech Tuesdays. So on Tech Tuesdays, I talk about broadband-related issues. Could be just about any topic that's related to broadband service providers. And today, like I mentioned, I've got this report that the NTCA did that I thought was interesting that I wanted to run through some of the stats in here. So this is a broadband internet availability survey report that the NTCA did, and they do this every year. You can see NTCA used to be the National, I think, Telecommunications Cooperative Association, something like that, for smaller rural broadbands, tend to be in farm areas, those kinds of things. And they rebranded themselves to the Rural Broadband Association, which would be a good change considering a lot of the focus now is on broadband and not necessarily on telephone systems or telecom, right? NTCA, let me get over here. I can move this thing. There we go. I'm going to go through this. This was December 20th, 2020 is when this came out, so this month. Wait a minute. Whoa, this is, okay, well, this is actually 2020. This is the state of 2020, I guess. So we'll go through this anyway. So this will be 2020 compared to 2019. So again, I'm going to go through this. So we've got the intro here is just telling a little bit about the NTCA. So again, Rural Broadband Association, National Association representing 850 rural rate of return regulated telecom providers in 45 states. Respondents to this year's survey report an average of 4,000, approximately 3,978 residential and 456 business fixed broadband connections in service. 217 members responded. That's about almost 33% responded. Important to note, it says here that not all respondents answered every question. Here's some information on the areas they represent. So the average service area identified by respondents is approximately 2,063 miles. It's nearly half, or 50%, report having a service area of less than 500 square miles, or just over 1/4. Have a service area between 500 and 2,000 square miles. So again, these are smaller operators. In proportion slightly smaller than that, about 25%, have a service area, larger. Service area of 2,000 square miles or larger. So on average, 7 in 10 serviceable locations are served by fiber to the home in 2020, while an average of 21.2% are served via copper loops. Fiber to the node is used to serve an average of 5.8% serviceable locations, and cable modems 1.4%, unlicensed fixed wireless 1.3%, and licensed fixed wireless 0.5%. Now I was going to get to some of the stats in here. So first they're talking about voice service, voice grade access lines, interconnected VoIP lines, and fixed broadband connections. So, and you see some upticks here, and I think this is, being 2020, probably likely the impact of the pandemic on some of these that changed here. So you see a number of voice grade access lines in 2019. The mean was 3212, and it actually went up in 2020, which you would not expect with voice lines, but as people moved from the office to home and maybe decided they needed to get a voice line that maybe didn't have that before, I could see that being an uptick there. Business, you see, went from 1,057 to 1,197, number of voice grade access lines in 2020. Number of interconnected VoIP lines also went up in 2020, went down, remained about the same as far as business. The number of fixed broadband connections, also as you would expect, went up in 2020 from 3,442 to 3,978 as far as the mean. And then business-wise, that actually dropped, 462 to 456. That could potentially be an impact of the pandemic as some businesses closed due to, or at least shuttered for a while and maybe stopped or disconnected their broadband for a while. So like I say, this is my note here, these figures are likely to do pandemic impact. Most have IP switching facilities or soft switches for their voice traffic compared to having TDM. You can see most of those, 95.9%, have that switching equipment compared to just a small number that still use TDM. Actually, 48.9% still use TDM, excuse me. This 4.1%, I guess, had no soft switches or switching. Network platforms used to provide fixed broadband. As you can imagine, these were primarily rural telephone companies when you're talking about the NTCA. So fiber to the home is the vast majority as far as how they offer broadband. You see that went up from 93.5 to 97.5%, 2019 to 2020. Copper loops dropped, as you would expect. Fiber to the node, about the same. Unlicensed fixed wireless dropped quite a bit in 2020. Again, possibly related to more fiber coming in as they were maybe going into areas where they did not have fiber plant and they were doing fixed wireless. Maybe they deployed fiber in those areas. Cable modem stayed the same, so about 8.4% was cable modem. Satellite, a significant drop there from 5.6% to 2%. And then other, just a drop there as well. I'm not sure what that is. So as you can see here, just a couple of notes. More than half still use copper loops. About 58.1% still use copper loops for some customers in their service area. Percentage which has steadily dropped over the last 2 years. 63.6% in 2019 and 65.8% in 2018. Percentages add up to more than 100%, as it says here, due to the presence and use of multiple technology platforms. So as you're looking at these numbers, just because they say 97.5%, obviously we've got some are using copper, some are using fiber nodes, some could be using all of these, some could even have satellite in there and using that as well. Average percentage of serviceable locations for network platforms. So fiber to the home, just about 70% compared to 63, almost 64% in 2019. Then you've got copper loops, again, a little bit of a drop there. Fiber to the node, a drop there. And cable modem dropped as far as these are serviceable locations. So cable modem dropped from 2.4 to 1.4. And you see your unlicensed fixed wireless and your licensed fixed wireless. Maximum download speed availability. This has been increasing quite a bit. Again, the pandemic had a big impact on this as people required more speed. But you can see here, those who are able to get greater than or equal to a gig in 2020 versus 2019. So you see it went from 25.3 to 45.1%. Greater than equal to 100 meg or less. So these are people that can get 100 meg or less. 22.7. And that was 35.5% in 2019. So we see a drop there, which I'm sure the corresponding increase here. You would think that this would count in that, so I'm not sure why that number is that way, the way that it is. But you can see the other figures here. So in general, so 70% of the customers are able to receive greater than or equal to 100 meg broadband in 2020. Most significant increase comes in the gigabit tier, where respondents report that an average of 45.1% of their base can receive a maximum speed of equal to or greater than 1 gig, up from 25.3%. We reported that in 2019. So that is a significant jump right there. Again, I would think this number, greater than or equal to 100 meg, well, that's greater than or equal to a gig. So I guess they're saying that this particular tier has seen a drop. Respondents report that a very small percentage of their customer base is still only able to receive maximum downstream speeds greater than or equal to 200K, but less than 4 megs. So that's now at 2.3%, or was at the end of 2020, 2.3%. Broadband adoption by speed tier, we've got 7.9% in 2020 for a gig, and this is adoption. So you can offer the service, and whether or not somebody wants to pay for a gig is a different story. So you got 7.9%, almost 8% for a gig, and then 3.4% was in 2019. So that's bumped up a bit, again, probably pandemic related, as well as the availability of it. Greater than or equal to 100 meg, but less than 1 gig. We see those figures. And then here's a nice sweet spot here for a lot of operators. I think 25 by meg, but greater than or equal to 25, but less than 100. So quite a few there. 35.8 in 2020 and 32 in 2019. So as it says here, the survey reflects that consumers continue to migrate steadily to higher speeds as they become available for subscription. The largest percentage of customers, however, continues to subscribe to a downstream speed of greater than or equal to 25 meg, but less than 100. So 25 meg is the minimum right now for the FCC definition of broadband. If you are going to be taking infrastructure dollars from the Biden infrastructure plan, then you have to deploy at something at least 100 megs. So a lot of these folks are sitting in a good position as far as offering that. They don't necessarily have all of their customers taking that, though. You can see the number, the sweet spot, like I said, seems to be between 25 and 100. At the same time, the proportion subscribing to speeds that do not exceed 25 megs is 36.1% in 2020 compared with 50% in 2019. So they've seen a significant drop in people taking speeds less than 25 megabits per second. And that, again, does not qualify for broadband as far as the FCC is concerned. It's got some information about the cost to bring customers up to different speed levels. I find it a little kind of difficult to look in this table, so just to look at the highlights here. Respondents estimate it would cost an average of approximately $20.8 million to bring all ILEC customers who are not already at a gig fixed broadband service up to that speed. The total estimated cost to bring all customers up to 100 meg level of service is $19.7 million, while the total estimated cost to bring all customers up to the 25 meg downstream level of service is $11.4 million. So I found this interesting in that I don't see much of a difference at all here. It says that $20.8 million to bring all of their customers up to a gig, or $19.7 million to bring all their customers up to 100 meg, then $11.4 to bring them up to 25. So the only thing I can think of there is that this is basically a fiber deployment. So they're looking at there are places where they don't have fiber, and then what they would need to deploy for that. And if you're going to deploy fiber, you're going to be able to deploy 100, and very likely you could, for not much more, deploy a gig, right? So the big cost is getting the glass in the ground, so to speak. So I think that's probably what's going on there. Respondents report that an average of 83.8% of their customers can receive an upstream speed of 3 megs or greater for fixed broadband service, up from 79.2% reported in 2019. That's really good to be able to get 3 megs upstream. So a lot of times that's the more difficult direction to get your high-speed internet, and a lot of this probably has to do with getting this gig service. That 40 whatever percent it was, 45% I think that could get a gig. Well, there's no issues there, obviously. Anytime you have fiber, and again having 98% of the people being able to get fiber, then you're not going to really have much of an issue on the upstream. How many are offering standalone broadband in these years? So you can see a significant change here. So in 2020, about 80% compared to about 20% that didn't, and that in 2019 that was 63.6% versus 36.4%. So that changed quite a bit. Nearly 8 in 10 residents report that they offer standalone, or respondents, sorry, report that they offer standalone broadband. Again, possibly a pandemic reaction where people were not getting service and then suddenly needed it, and they called, and all they really wanted was broadband. They had a cell phone, they had broadband at work, they didn't have broadband at home, so they called to get broadband service. And likely these operators responded by providing that plan or that package when maybe it was not available before. They talk a little bit about anchor institutions, and these are important as far as the infrastructure bill goes too, because there's money in there for anchor institutions. I believe in the bill it's got to be 1 gig symmetrical if you're going to offer money to an anchor institution and take a grant for that. But you can see a lot of them are providing that, and a lot of them are connected to a fiber network. These are the various types of anchor institutions that they have and that they're reporting here. And they've got a number of anchor institutions that might be in a particular broadband area. You can see that that has stayed relatively static in that particular time frame, 2019 to 2020. In average speed, you can see most of them are able to get over a gig, but most of them are not buying that. So that's the way I'm reading that here, is that we've got, is it available, and are they getting that? It looks like most are not getting it. Maybe they don't need it, but it is available to most of them, looks like. Respondents to the 2020 survey report that the average maximum broadband speed they make available to anchor institutions in their areas 1,428 megabits per second, or just under 1.5 gigs. Broadband service provided to farms and ranches, and you can see these are rural areas. So broadband service is provided to farms and ranches in the service area, and you can see that the vast majority, about 95%, do provide service to farms and ranches. And the average speed that they're getting The 2020 mean is 743 megabits per second, but the average that's being purchased, 72 megabits per second. So that's the average of what's available across all this. They had some information about long and short-term deployment strategies, and who's going to be offering fiber in the short term. Most are. I had some numbers here. So nearly 6 in 10 responding companies report that their short-term fiber deployment strategy is to deploy fiber to the home to an average of about 70% of customers by the end of 2021. That would be the end of this year. Similarly, just over 1/2 of companies indicate that their long-term strategy is to deploy fiber to the home to an average of almost 90% of the customers by 2026. So they've got their long-term plans. Companies are far less likely to deploy fiber to the node as either a short-term or a long-term strategy, about 2.4%. And then 30.5% indicate that all fiber deployments are done, and 38.6% report the same for long-term strategies. So does that mean that they have completely deployed fiber in their service area? Maybe it does. So what are their barriers for widespread fiber deployment? 88.7% say cost of deployment. So obviously all of the money that's available right now through the USDA Reconnect Fund, through ARPA, the American Recovery Act, through RDOF, Rural Development Opportunity Fund, and then of course, I think did I mention obviously the Biden infrastructure bill will help. Now the Biden infrastructure bill, they won't be able to get that money probably until 2023 or very late 2022 at best, I think. But there's still a lot of money available right now through the states from these other, and through the government, through the federal government, or through the states to these other funding opportunities. Long loops, a lot of them say that is an issue, regulatory uncertainty, and you got some other things here, obtaining financing, but again, there's lots of funds available, lots of grant money and loans available. Getting cost-effective equipment, that could significantly be an issue right now with the supply chain problems that we're having. Low customer demand, I've got about 10% on that. So again, you can build broadband, but maybe the demand is not there. And what does that demand mean? If you're a rural operator and you've got a service area where you've only got a handful of customers and you've got miles and miles of territory, and out of that handful of customers, maybe 2 want it, do you build to everybody? What do you do? So it's hard to make a case for that. But that's the point, obviously, of getting broadband funds out there so that they can build all of that infrastructure, even if somebody doesn't want it, because they may not want it now, but then somebody moves in later and they want it. So let's get all of that built. And again, it says most significant barrier is the cost. It says this is somewhat lower than the 91.4% of companies that said the same thing in 2019 and 93.2% in 2018. So I think it'll be even lower coming up because of all the money that's available. Companies are least likely to report that low customer demand is a significant barrier, which is 9.9%. That's a drop from 20% who cited the issue a year ago. So again, pandemic related. So back in 2019, people were like, oh, I don't need broadband. I got it at work. I can look at my phone when I need to. But suddenly people are at home, their kids are at home, the parents are at home having to work, kids are at home having to do school, and suddenly you need broadband. So there's a significant uptick there. How many are offering competitive service outside of their ILEC service area? Yes, 71.1%. That surprised me, quite a few, about almost 3/4, and about no, 28.9%. So more than 7 in 10, it says, do that. Number of, let's see, competitive broadband, residential and business, number of connections. That's the 2020 mean, 1,650 for residential and 375 for business. So they're offering both residential and business outside their service area. What kind of platforms are they using? Again, fiber is big, 87.5%, but there's also quite a few that are offering fixed wireless. So you can see that. They've got their ILEC area where they've had their fiber and copper deployed, and then do they lay fiber? Do they overbuild fiber in a competitive area, or do they? A lot of people, at least in earlier years, were taking the tactic of I'll put up some towers, or I'll go find some towers and offer a fixed wireless service. I've already got my other back-end systems in place, and all I need to do is get a last mile to the customer, and I can do that most cheaply, most economically through fixed wireless. So you did see a lot of telcos putting fixed wireless out in areas that were outside their service area, but it looks like quite a few of them are also doing fiber. This number surprised me. That's unlicensed fixed wireless, and then quite a few, 18.8% doing licensed fixed wireless. They've got licensed spectrum. 16.4% cable modems. So those are most likely ILECs that own a cable operator that acquired a cable operator. I doubt they went outside their service area to build cable plant, to use a DOCSIS cable plant. That wouldn't make any sense unless they did that years and years ago. So most likely they acquired a cable operator, and that is how they're providing service in an area outside of their ILEC service area. Copper loops, I'm assuming DSL, and then fiber to the node, and then 2.3% satellite. And then maximum downstream speed available in a competitive area. So almost as many are getting a gig service as they are in their service area. So it's 45%, I think, in service areas. So it's about 41% can get a gig outside the service area. 100 meg to 1 gig, 27%. 25 meg to 100 meg, 20%. And then you can see the numbers from here drop as we get lower and lower speeds. Broadband adoption by speed tier. And again, we're seeing that even though a gig is available, not everybody is getting that speed service. They don't necessarily want to pay for that, assuming obviously there's a premium price to get that gig service. So you got about 10% greater than or equal to a gig, 24%, 100 meg to a gig. Then again, here's your sweet spot, 25 meg to 100 meg, 39% are getting that. And you can see the numbers fall after that. How are they marketing this? So let's see here. So you fixed terrestrial broadband providers in the service area competing. Oh, this is first the competition. So who are they competing with in these areas? So looks like the majority they're competing with their cable companies. So I'm assuming again that's not a cable company that they own, but they may be going into other areas where they're competing with the local cable operator. About 65%, electric utilities 15%. Fixed wireless, 72%, that's the majority there. And then 22% would be other. So I could see that. So again, a lot of what these service providers did was they went into other service areas with fixed wireless in the early years because that was the easiest thing to do. That's also the easiest thing to do for an independent ISP that is not a phone company or cable company. If you wanted to get in the internet business, what you would do is get in the wireless business because you can more easily get the last mile set up because you got a tower and then you just have air, right? So depending on the wireless technology, a lot of times you don't need necessarily line of sight. So that's where a lot of the competitors were, where there was not a service provider. So those are the ones that are kind of ripe for the picking for somebody who's going to go in and build out in an adjacent area. If there's a fixed wireless only provider there, I think that's why we see 72% in that number. How are they marketing this? Bundling of services, most are doing that, 77.1%. And then we've got pricing and price promotions. I'm not sure what this, here it is. Steps taken by respondents to increase take rates and steps taken by competitors that are difficult to match. Okay, I didn't look at that earlier. So we got 77% of the respondents are bundling services, and 45% are steps taken by competitors, difficult to match. Right. 68% are doing price promotions, where the competitors, I guess, are doing 81.6%, and maybe it's difficult for them to match that price. Free customer premise equipment, 65.1% are doing that. That's difficult, taken by competitors, difficult to match. I'm still not understanding those figures. So we'll stick to what the respondents are doing. Free hardware, 48.8% are providing free hardware. Free software, 6.6%, and then other 20.5%. So that's it. I thought these were some interesting figures. When I was looking at this first, I thought it was 2021. So maybe there'll be another report coming out here. It was actually in a news story that I saw. So, but it's still very interesting information. It shows, I think, the impact of the pandemic and what's been happening there. And I think we can see for 2021, I think we can see a change in some of these answers, especially when it comes to costs. Because again, there's a lot of money out there that's available. There's a lot of money that's already been submitted. Applications are being put in for things like American Recovery. Obviously, A lot of operators had responded to RDOF, the reverse auction that the FCC did. There's USDA Connect funds. So if you're providing rural broadband, which these would be the guys that would be getting those USDA Reconnect funds, those funds are available. So, and a lot of those are being, already allocated or ready to be more money to be allocated to these kinds of service providers. So, all right. Well, thanks for joining me. Give me a like on this if it was helpful for you, if you thought it was interesting, and make sure you subscribe if you want to get notified whenever we are live or post a video. I'm going to be live tomorrow with my broadband deployment news. So if you are a service provider of any kind or looking at being a service provider, let's say a municipality or electric co-op or something like that, looking to take advantage of some of the federal funds that are available to be able to build out internet in areas that are unserved or underserved, I do a broadcast every day, not at the same time, but I go live. So if you hit subscribe, click the little bell to be notified. Make sure that your browser, and especially your device, like your phone, is set up to get notifications from YouTube, and then you'll be notified when a video comes up, and then you can decide if you want to watch it. You don't have to watch it, obviously, but if you want to watch it, tune in and you'll see me there. So thanks for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.